Okay, so the next process of actually starting drawing your caricature is to actually understand how to dissect the person's face into a meaningful caricature. It's got to look like the person, but also has some kind of quality of deformation, which is what makes a caricature a caricature. You can't just do a literal portrait and say it's a caricature, because it doesn't work that way. You've got to find something interesting about this person's face that will allow you to then deform it and make it into a funny kind of caricature. Now, I showed you a pencil drawing I did of Bill Murray, so I've chosen him as an example. I've also chosen a few other ones which I've done. There's Jeff Bridges, remember I did Jeff Bridges. I've also chosen Danny DeVito. I haven't done him yet, but I've chosen him for an obvious reason. And finally, Benedict Cumberbatch, who I've done also as well. And what I want to do is just show you there, before we go on to the next stage, which is geometrical shapes, how to use your eyes to understand what is important in those processes of deforming these characters, or defining what you will need to use as a kind of a method of making them into a good caricature. Now, I've placed a little piece over the top so we can actually sort of draw on top of this and make it look more interesting, so I can show you the things that I would recognise. Now, it's using your eyes basically. Now, if this is where your eye line is, okay, right smack through. Okay, put it into a dark colour so I can see it. Okay, right through the middle of your eyes, that's where your eye line is. Now, what you want to do is to try to evaluate with your mind the distance between there and to the bottom of his chin. Now, that's roughly the same, which is interesting. Now, if we do the same with visually, this is what we're talking about visually. Now, maybe his chin comes here, but visually you think the chin's there. Okay, so if we draw the eye line there, okay, you think his head finishes there as well. So this between there and there is different, it's smaller there. Okay, same here. Eye line, top of the head to the eye line down to the chin, you see it's bigger at the bottom. Okay, and finally Mr. Cumberbatch, if you do the same with him, eye line roughly the top of the head, it's a little bit more extended at the bottom, but it's roughly the same. Okay, so there's two different ways of looking at these. Like that's got more at the bottom, more at the bottom. That's roughly equal. Okay, so saying that, what do we do from this? What we need to do is just think, because what you need to do when you're defining a caricature is not basically make them smaller than the original head. You've got to move and deform the size of the parts to fit into roughly the same shape as the head. We'll talk about the geometric shapes in a minute, but one thing you'll notice about Bill Murray's character, if I just do a line there, you'll notice his neck is very thick. It almost comes straight out of the side of his thing, so you've got to use that. But you also notice he's got this nice curve here. Okay, so let me just erase that. So what you need to do is to emphasize that, like so. Okay, this is just rough, so don't worry. But when you do that, the point where the neck comes in, so you have to then curve the neck in to make it look like that thick thing. Okay, and now what you need to do is notice where his eyes are, but you need to possibly move those down. Okay, you notice this shape here as well, it's quite similar to the kind of distance between his eye height and there. So what we need to do is look at this is the next important part. He's got quite a bulbous nose. It's something that stands out when you see it. So what will happen when we do this is we're going to make his nose a little bit bigger. Okay, now there's all these theories about this T-shaped thing, about, you know, how far the eyes are apart next to the size of the nose. Now he's got a short nose, so what we need to do is look like it's actually becoming smaller, and the way we do that is by making the end of it more bulbous. Yeah, it doesn't actually literally need to be smaller. You see, it's actually become bigger. Okay, but it looks smaller simply because we made part of it bigger. Okay, right, so we can do those down. What I would do as well is I would drop his mouth down a little bit, like so. Okay, and bring his chin up slightly, which would allow me then, because you don't want this here, you want a bigger forehead, so it will allow me to then literally, it's not allowing me to, I've got to deselect it. allow me to then move these down just a little bit, so the eye line would be in a different position, and from that point then I can then just possibly put his head part a little bit higher, I'd say. Okay, another thing you can do then is obviously make his ears a little bit lower down as well, which will also give the impression that this part of the head is taller, because you're actually moving a recognisable feature further down. Okay, so on that basis we can either keep those there, which will help make it more cartoony as well, and then add the wrinkles and everything, and we will then create a Bill Murray starting point, okay, using that as a visualization. Okay, now let's look at another one. This is one we said before about Jeff Bridges. Now one thing you notice here when you look at it, let's just give it a new layer because I don't want to, this distance here is a lot more than that, so this is a kind of a starting point, yeah, of the kind of design of the caricature. Again, as I said, I tend not to do extreme caricatures, but this is kind of a thing that you can recognise straight away, so you can probably even bring that even further in if you wanted to make it more extreme, like so. And you notice he's got a short nose again, so you just basically make that bit short, bulbous, make his end of his nose a little bit more bulbous, make these bits a little bit smaller. And now we have the starting point of the shape that he's going to be, yeah, when you actually draw him. Now you can also do that, okay, like so. So it's kind of like recognising that this is going to look a lot bigger. Now you may change this, it's just like me trying to show you the visualizations. You maybe you're going to probably make this smaller. I would make it smaller. You see his hairline's there. So what you could do is like bring that down to even just to this point. Like so. Just erase this bit so it looks better. Actually do it at the right end, yeah. So that'll be a starting point. You see this area here looks a lot bigger than that now, and that's the emphasizing point. Okay, you will need to just clean it up a little bit to make this jaw look more like a real jaw. Okay, but that's how you would define the differentiation between his features and everything. I never tend to do these off the top of my head as well from a different angle. I tend to do them straight, like you know. Okay, but that's how I would do it. Again here, to make this part look larger than it is, you just leave, for instance, you need to draw this part in more and draw that out more that way. Okay, keeping the same actual literal height, maybe even making this a little bit smaller. So, but you'll see his glasses are big as well, so if you just think about making those even bigger than they are, and making that even more obvious by making his nose even smaller. Like so. Even if you kept some parts of it actually as it is, yeah, you still have quite a caricaturized facial expression. Now, as I said, mine are subtle, so this could be even pushed more, but that's a starting point. Recognizing which elements need to be emphasized. Now we can go into more detail when actually drawing a caricature, but for instance, you got these bits here, for instance, which could aid in it, and you got his wrinkles from his eyes, and you got these big bags under his eyes which could be extended down a bit further as well. And all these kind of little bits will help build it up into a proper looking caricature. And finally, the last one to look at, Benedict. Maybe I'm emphasising that because he's British, I don't know. This is where the geometric shapes are going to come into effect, and I don't know if you can see this already, but if you look here to here to here, there's kind of a triangle, yeah, which is what we need to do as an emphasis. So again, you could probably make his nose smaller. Like so. And make his forehead a lot bigger. So do that part, and then make his hair come over bigger as well. So it emphasises that triangular effect that we're trying to look for. Like so. And maybe just bring his mouth down, his chin down to a point where it looks also interesting. You notice a lot of people have this, especially when it's lit properly, this kind of sides of the forehead. That can aid in the dramaticness of the actual drawing, so we'll talk about that later when we're actually doing the pictures. But he also has these oriental type eyes. They have this kind of slope, which is quite interesting as well. So this is one of the characteristics. His mouth as well, you know, he has this kind of look to his lips. This is something you need to do, and just make it more emphasised. You do that, for instance. Okay. This is what I would do to Mr. Benedict to make him look more cartoonised. Okay, let's just, yeah, that's a starting point. Like I said, obviously it doesn't look much like him as a very rough, but you'll notice that I've actually extended his forehead, made his triangular shape more triangular. Okay, it's a piece of shape now. And what we could even do as well, which I didn't do actually, now let's just see if I can. We could even extend his neck, like so. Which will emphasise the height that you want to do on his head, because it's quite a long, next to width-wise, head structure. And to make that even more extended, you can just do the appendage parts, which is his neck and everything. Don't need to do anything with his ears. Okay, and that turns him into a Benedict Cumberbatch starting point for a caricature. Okay, so this is how you look at different people's faces and use your eyes as the key to looking what is it about that person that needs to be extended, needs to be altered or changed or pushed out, made thinner, made squashed, made bigger. Okay, and this is the important part of caricature design, actually figuring all those things out and then putting it into practice, which we're going to be doing next, which is the starting point of actual physically drawing what we want to do, and looking at geometric shapes, which will be a big help for everybody.